What are your thoughts on Carmelo Anthony and his incredible career?
Oh, Carmelo was phenomenal in his NBA career. It's just unfortunate that the one thing that's going to be attached to his career is that he never won an NBA championship. When it comes to Carmelo, just individually as a player, though, Kev, it goes without saying that he was one of the most electrifying players when we were growing up, especially when he was in Denver, when he had his tenure with the Knicks. Kev, he was lights out behind the 3 point line. And he wasn't afraid to take those big time shots in those big time moments and knock down critical shots for whatever team he was playing for. He's one of the most prolific scorers in the 2000s and the early 2010s. And when it comes to Carmelo, I think there's this idea, especially with kids that are growing up nowadays and thinking that he's a scrub, that he's a shell of his former self. And that's really all the memory that they have of Carmelo. And maybe this is a time where people like Kevin and I should definitely, influence them a little bit in saying it's like that wasn't Carmelo. You got Carmelo at the tail end of his career where he just wasn't the same player. He just wasn't as effective as he was when he was in his prime. Because when he was in his prime, Kev, he was legitimately one of the best players in the NBA. You could make a really tough case that he was maybe the best player in the NBA, but I don't think anybody was really making that argument. It was really either Kobe or LeBron during his time when he was in his prime, but he was probably third or fourth in that discussion, just based on his shooting ability and his ability to knock down shots at the rim, from the mid range, and behind the 3 point line. And, you look at Carmelo's whole career, it was extremely effective because they don't put scrubs in the top 75 all-time NBA list when the NBA was celebrating its 75th anniversary a couple years ago, or I believe it was last year. So Carmelo's career was extremely successful. He's going to go down as a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about that, simply just because of the impact that he brought to the NBA as a whole throughout his time. It's just, it's unfortunate that, like I said, he was never able to get that one NBA championship next to his name. To me, that would have capped off one hell of a career with Carmelo. But even despite that, still, it was an amazing career from Carmelo Anthony. Outside of the NBA, he won 3 gold medals with Team USA: 2008, 2012, 2016. So even though he wasn't able to get that NBA championship hardware, he was able to get 3 gold medals next to his name and alongside his teammates with Team USA in those 3 Olympic runs where they were extremely successful for the United States. To me, I will always look back on Carmelo Anthony's career with a certain amount of fondness, just because I think when it came to just the rivalry that they had between himself and Kobe, especially when they were going back at it, uh, I'd say the late 2000s, like that 2008, 2009, 2010 stretch. That's where I think Kobe and Carmelo really made it interesting in those Western Conference playoffs matchups. And then, as far as I see it, he's probably one of the most beloved players in franchise history for the Knicks, even though that it didn't end in a championship. I imagine that a lot of Knicks fans have an extreme amount of fondness for the amount of excitement that he brought to the New York area during his time there. It's just, just to wrap this up, to me, Carmelo Anthony is going to go down as a Hall of Famer. Granted, I know he doesn't have the championship hardware to go along with that, but to me, the guy played in the NBA for almost 20 years, was one of the most exciting figures within the NBA during his time. And honestly, it was a great career, no matter how you look at it. And I think that's how I will always look at Carmelo Anthony's career when it's all said and done.
Carmelo obviously is one of the most prolific scorers that this league has seen. I believe he's retiring ninth, if not 10th, on the all-time NBA scoring list. Carmelo Anthony is known for somebody that is going to give you 110% every time down the floor. Maybe not known for his defensive presence, maybe not necessarily known for being a leader in the locker room, but when it comes to offensively, what he was able to put out, whether from the mid range, whether it was down low, whether it was screaming, "Get the fuck out of here" on a rebound, um, Carmelo Anthony is renowned as probably one of the best players of this generation. growing up, seeing him go toe to toe in the Western Conference with the likes of Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki, and a list of other Hall of Fame players was unlike any other. And like I had mentioned in my lead up, the 2009 Western Conference Finals was prime Carmelo Anthony going at it with Kobe Bryant, to which obviously the Nuggets fell, to Kobe eventually going out and getting his fourth NBA championship. It was unlike anything else. I mean, Kobe talked about it, obviously, rest in peace, before he had passed away. Carmelo Anthony has talked about it a number of times in his career, to where him and Kobe were very physical. Obviously, they were really good friends, but when it came to being on the court together at the same time, competing for a championship, it was something to be witnessed. I mean, those two were just level one competitors, absolutely giving it 130% at any time they had against one another. The matchups were great. The scoring outputs were great. The back and forth was incredible. The series as a whole was great. Then you go into Carmelo Anthony going to the New York Knicks, eventually being known as his homecoming. It was amazing. I mean, I'll always remember the one of the first games Carmelo was a Knick and coming down the floor and hitting a couple shots against the Chicago Bulls to force a big win. The shot over Luol Deng and a number of other big plays that the Knicks had made while he was there. I mean, Melo scored 61 points on all jump shots in the Garden. Carmelo Anthony led the Knicks to a second-round playoff berth for the first time in God knows how many years, with the likes of an old Jason Kidd, Steve Novak, J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert. I mean, the list of players of just randomness kind of goes on. But Carmelo was known as a competitor. How his career ended was unfortunate. Obviously, signing with Oklahoma City, then obviously ended up getting traded to Atlanta, then getting picked up by Houston, and then, of course, not being in the league for a few years, then coming back to Portland, revitalizing his career, then going to the Lakers, and then being out of the league again. I believe that he was given an unfair closeout to his career. I mean, if Paul Pierce got a closeout in the Clippers, or should I say in Los Angeles as a Clipper, I believe that Carmelo Anthony deserved a lot better. But again, that's neither here nor there. From an overall standpoint, Carmelo Anthony will always go down as one of the best players of Kyle and I's generation growing up in the 2000s, in the late 90s. Obviously, Kyle and I were born in 94, 95 respectively, but we grew up and actually started paying attention in the 2000s where we actually knew how the sport worked. So, like kudos to Carmelo Anthony. Obviously, like one of the best players that we've seen in a long time, one of the best offensive, prolific scorers that we've seen in our generation. And, like he will be severely missed. I will put it out there. I would not be surprised if he were to come out for a year out of retirement next season, the season after, just because he has a lot left in the tank. He's consistently working with his son, Kyan Anthony, and it really does look like he still has a lot. Obviously, when he was a Laker, he averaged 12, 13 points a game, so it's not really a surprise for him to come off the bench again for a competitive team. We will see. If he hangs it up permanently, I wouldn't be surprised either. But I'm just saying, knowing Carmelo, him not getting the Farewell Tour, him not getting a chance to go out on his own terms, I would not be surprised if he did. But if he does decide to hang it up, tip of the cap. Again, as a native New Yorker, what he was able to do for New York City, what he was able to do for the Knicks, it was incredible. And he will be a Hall of Famer without a doubt, in my opinion.